Hi, August. Hi, Francis. So nice to see you again. August, take it away.
Hey, Alex, thank you so much. I am so incredibly excited to be here with all of you at this incredible block by block event. My name is August Bradley, and I'm the creator of the Notion Life Design course, where we identify what you value most in life and the things that bring the most meaning to your life. And then using Notion, put systems and processes in place to help you consistently move toward it. I also run a popular YouTube channel that addresses the same topics. It's also very Notion based, and I do a lot of coaching and consulting. And I'm super excited to be here with Francis.
Thanks, August. Hi, everyone. Super excited to be here. My name is Francis Odera Matthews, and I'm the founder of the Notion Bar, and I'm a certified Notion consultant. I work with my clients to build things in Notion that are equal parts beautiful and functional, essentially making Notion look less like a spreadsheet and feel more personal to you so that you actually want to use the beautiful systems and products that you make. So yeah, I'll hand it back to August. He's going to start his presentation.
Awesome. Thank you, Francis. Okay, so today in this session, we're going to dive into essential productivity setups using Notion and really leveraging Notion extensively. So I want to start by introducing the concept of the systems approach and systems thinking. Systems thinking is a sort of a philosophy. It's an outlook where we look at larger comprehensive integrations holistically rather than individual silos. And Notion is very good at building individual tools, individual applications that are super valuable and we can use every day. There are a lot of specialty apps out there that do, individual siloed specialty functions. One of the really great powers of Notion and what drew me to it in the first place is that you can build deeply integrated systems across all the different categories and aspects of your life and your business. So you can bring it all together. And there's a lot of value in integrating a larger holistic system. Each component, again, has value, but there are additional emergent properties that arise when you combine them together. They inform each other, they fuel each other, they are communicating, and they enhance each other, each component. So today we're going to look a lot at least in my first presentation here, at setting goals, projects, and action items. But I present this here, and each of these cylinders is a database in Notion that we'll look at. But I want to present that this is part of a larger integrated system. You don't need to understand this right now. This is just visually representing the idea of a larger integrated system and how all these pieces inform and fuel and enhance each other. So diving back in to the idea of essential productivity setups in Notion, I think these fundamentally all break down into two major categories. One is action management and the other is knowledge management. So action management, which is what I'm going to focus more on, is about identifying your values and guiding principles. These are the things that should inform all of your behaviors and objectives and actions. And then we set goals, we establish projects and tasks, and we manage that flow through the different states of process to a point of completion. And we define our habits and routines. We build the behaviors into our life that are going to move us forward. And we establish weekly, monthly, and annual reviews so we can have guiding checks and balances, keep everything on track. Knowledge management is about establishing resources that you can draw from anytime that are super valuable and enhance the work you do. So it's capturing our notes and ideas, it's journaling and tracking what's happening day to day, week to week, month to month, understanding and reflecting in that process and keeping, a nice little archive of those thoughts and reflections. Media capture, all the flood of articles and podcasts and videos and all the media coming at us all the time. We have a way of using Notion to curate that, organize that, put it into a very useful, valuable resource for us to draw on as we need. And ideally, we want it to resurface in the right context. And then we want to aggregate and distill the best insights and wisdom from all these things that we've been capturing. And Notion does all of this beautifully. But one thing that Notion does exceptionally well is we can put these systems and processes and tools in place. But unlike any other platform I've worked with, it lets us customize it endlessly. So you can either start from scratch and build your own, which is of course customized from day one, but a lot of times we don't know where to start. It's overwhelming. Like Notion can do so much. Where do we start? So often we implement a system, like the systems that I and other creators are developing. My system's called the Pillars, Pipelines, and Vault system, but it's a foundational infrastructure. It's never the final end product, as you find with other specialty apps. You put this foundational infrastructure into place, and then you build and optimize for your own use cases and your own needs. That's really the beauty of Notion. You get the best of both worlds. You can implement a proven system, but then you can modify and endlessly adapt it without any coding, without any specialty computer science skills. So that's what really drew me to Notion, is the ability to build and design your own personal system. All right, so let's dive into some examples of how we might have a powerful system at our fingertips helping to guide our life. And I'm going to use the Pillars, Pipelines, and Vaults PPV system that I teach as an example. And this is essentially a life management system. We call it a life operating system. And this section here is called the alignment zone. The PPV system is all about two things: focus and alignment. Focus on the things you need to do now, today, this hour, to actually advance your life, and alignment, so that the things you're doing on a daily and hourly basis are aligned with your highest level aspirations, with your values in life, with what brings life meaning to you. So we have the highest, most high concept aspirations, which we want to have clear definition of. And then we have our daily and hourly tasks. We have a series of layers in between so that it all connects and there's visibility. Many of us have set goals in the past. We write down our goals and then we put it in a drawer, or even worse, we put it in Evernote, and then we never see it again because it's just a list standing by itself, detached, not connected. I've done this endlessly. And then maybe if you're lucky, you see it 6 months later and you're like, oh yeah, right, I was supposed to be doing that. And you've just drifted so far away from it. By having an alignment dashboard like this in Notion, you can connect those goals and high level aspirations to what you're doing every single day. And you have connective layers in between to make sure you have visibility and tracking as you go through your days and weeks and months. So this is how I do it and how I teach it. This is the alignment zone. We start with defining our guiding principles very specifically. I don't want to dive into this because that's an involved process. It takes a lot of time to reflect and really understand what you value. But just be aware, everything starts with that, understanding your values and what brings life meaning to you. Then we establish our review cycles so that periodically we check in on how we're doing relative to each of these tiers of our goals and aspirations. And then we have what I call pillars. Pillars are categorizations of each aspect of your life. It's merely an organization. So we will organize it into pillar groupings, such as personal growth, business, or career, or work, and then home life. And this is a way of just organizing everything both in Notion so that we can do sorting and filtering by these pillars, and outside of Notion so that all of our organization and other hierarchical structures, such as Dropbox, are consistent with our organization and categories in Notion. Doing that by pillars helps keep everything in your mental view of how to connect all these things consistent. And then we have value goals. We got the pillar support where we define our habits and routines. We've got our value goals, which is where we define our highest aspirations in life. These could be many, many years in the making that we're working towards what we ultimately want to achieve in life, but it tends to be emotional, something that plays to our deepest values, something that makes us excited, makes our heart beat faster when we think about it. And then we set up outcome goals, which are very tangible, measurable, trackable goals aligned with the value goals. Every outcome goal has a value goal. Every value goal has at least one, if not more, outcome goals. And that's how we move toward it, by consistently tracking the outcome goal progress, but having our compass set by our value goals. And then we have projects. Projects are one of the two ways we accomplish our outcome goals. The other way is having habits and routines that are regular processes and behaviors and practices that we implement to achieve our outcome goals. Or for the sake of this example, we'll focus on projects where you define a set project and activity with a deadline that you're going to implement to move toward your outcome goal. You may have many projects for an outcome goal, but at any given time, you set a few of them to active. In our trainings, we spend a lot of time teaching how to make sure you don't have too many active projects, because then none of them move forward. It's better to have a few active projects that are actively progressing and you're making happen rather than a flood of them that's overwhelming and we don't proceed and we don't make any real progress. And each of these also Notion beautifully lets us have a window into each project where we can see all the action items and tasks lined up for that, queued up, all of our notes and ideas, all of our knowledge topics and media captured that are relevant to this specific project. It's a window into every aspect of that project and helps us manage that project so much more effectively when it's all in one place. Again, systems thinking all coming together with all of your aspects of your life in one window when you're managing that one project. All right. And then projects are driven by action items, which we just saw in the project view, but we can also see on a calendar view or so many other different valuable views that Notion provides when we look at databases. So with that overview, also let's put this in context a little bit. We will jump to the action zone, which takes those action items that we just saw, filters for the ones that are only relevant for today, and we zero in throughout our day on this one dashboard that just gives us visibility on the specific things we need to do today in order. That's all you look at all day. It's all queued up, but you know they're the right ones because you have the alignment zone ensuring that they're the right actions to move you towards your life's aspirations. And to put it in a little more context, the command center would be the top level dashboard that enables us to access any other part of the system, the action zone and the alignment zone, which we've talked about, the knowledge vault for knowledge management, daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly tracking, our pillars, and the organization of our databases all here. So it's all accessible all over the place. And of course, we favorite in the upper left by clicking the star, our most active ones. So let's jump back to more of a beginning stage. How would we start building something like this from scratch? Let's do a little demo here. Very simply, this begins by you're identifying your primary values in life. Again, that's a long process, but for the sake of this simplified example, to the extent you're aware of your values, just list them here, but you got to write them out because if writing forces you, it reveals the gaps in your thinking and forces you to connect those dots. Write out your values to the extent you're aware of them at this point. Then set up a database for goals, a database for projects, and a separate database for tasks. And we're going to go through the build of one of these, but through relational links. There's a property in Notion databases called relations that lets you connect entries in one database to entries in another database. So we're going to be connecting our goals to our projects and our projects to our tasks. And therefore, the projects being in the middle will be connected to the tasks underneath them, the individual tasks that are advancing each individual project, and the goals above them. So it's really a beautifully integrated database life management action progression way to map out how you go day to day to implement your higher level goals. Let's walk through this so we can get a sense of how to build such a connected database. So I'm just going to delete this one and we are going to rebuild this. Now, having deleted that, I'm going to delete this property too so that we can rebuild it. All right, now we want to build a new database. So we're going to go /table. Table is just one of the views in Notion, but it's the one that's easiest to organize and build new database functionality. Now there's a new simple tables. That's a great new feature, but we're going to use the full table database and we're going to do it inline so that it's embedded right here. And to keep it nice and organized, we're going to drag it into this call out and we're going to call it goals. So we're going to rebuild the goals database I just showed you so you can see how this is created at a basic, simple starter level. Now, having done that, we're going to put in a few examples here. So goal one, goal 2, and goal 3. Obviously, you will name these very specifically when you do this in your own personal system. And this layout right here, this simplified starter set, will be available in a template that Notion is distributing, along with the flowchart we opened with. Now, we'll set the first relational property here, and this is going to connect a project. So you want to title it, and then you want to choose relation, because that's the kind of property it is. Then you want to choose the database we're connecting to. So we'll type in project. It's easy as just a search for the right one. And that's the projects database below. We created the relation. And now this goals database is connecting to the projects database. So we can now start choosing which projects will inform each goal. So let's say goal 1 it needs a project to advance it. Let's say project 2 will be helping advance goal 1. For goal 2, we're going to move forward on that by connecting it to project 3. And for goal 3, we're going to connect it to project 1. So now, as we've added these here, they have automatically been added down below here. Enlarge that a little bit. And you can see which goals each project is informing and advancing. And you can see below which tasks each project is connected to. Now, you would have multiple tasks, of course, for each project, but this is a simplified example so you can see how it works. Now we've got these lined up. And as a bonus, you can add a roll-up since since the tasks are each connected to projects and the projects are each connected to goals, you can have a roll-up so that an established relation can bring with it other data. So we have this roll-up here. We'll want to establish the configuration here. So the only relation we have in this tasks database is projects. If you had multiple relations, you could pick which one to connect the roll-up to. And then we choose what information we want to roll up with the relation. In this case, it's the goals right there. And now the goals are rolling down to tasks based on which goals each project was attached to, because the task is linked. That's a little bit, if I'm losing you there, don't worry about it. That's a more advanced feature. Just wanted to toss that in there. But it's demonstrating the interconnectivity you have across different parts of the system. And this one piece can effortlessly and automatically inform other parts. And that's just the power of Notion, the combination of these relational links and databases and these endlessly interactive pages and dashboards that we can create. So now, having created this, this is what we're looking at when we go to the action zone, which is our focus page. Remember, PPV is all about focus and alignment. When we go to focus, those tasks we just defined are now listed here, filtered again for today. So we only see the ones rolling up for today. We're assigning a due date, a DO date, the day we plan to do each task, so that it will automatically roll up into that filtered view, filtered just for today. And we get extreme clarity when we sit down each morning on what to do each day, no distractions, get the work done in that order. And with that, I think we can open it up to some questions. I wanted to get a sense of what you guys would like to dig into a little bit further. We don't have a lot of time. We have about 7 minutes, but we can explore further any aspect of this that might be of interest to you guys. All right, so we've got lots of questions coming in. All right, our producer's feeding them into me, so let's see what we can dive into further. So Marco asks, do you still use tools like Obsidian or Roam Research on top of your very own thoughts and insights? There was a video back where you talked about that. If so, how is your process? So I have used a wide variety in the past. Overwhelmingly, Notion is my life operating system. It is the backbone. It is the central structure. I will experiment sometimes with thought tools. All of these other tools they're specialized tools. They're, in these examples, are note-taking apps where you can capture thoughts, and they support thinking with this networked thought approach. Now, Notion has closed the gap on that with its backlinks and its inline linking. And I find that when I was originally using Roam, the Notion closed the gap enough that the specialized benefit of Roam wasn't enough to compensate for the additional work of bridging two systems, and that Notion had so many things doing so many aspects of my life that Roam couldn't touch. So it just was more efficient to do everything in Roam. I've experimented with Obsidian. I find it can be helpful for exploring thoughts on specific topics. But again, everything else is in Notion. And I believe in this systems thinking approach, this holistic approach where each part of your life, each part of your thinking informs the other. One aspect of PPV that really makes it powerful for me in terms of knowledge management is the idea of resurfacing in context. And because my whole life, all my projects, all my client work, all of my habits and routines and my fitness and everything is in Notion, as I capture notes and thoughts and ideas, and I capture media, by having it resurface in context using self-referencing filtered database views, it brings these ideas to surface in the context when I need them. So inevitably you forget about them. You have a thought, you have an idea, you capture an article or a video, you're going to forget about it. It's inevitable. And so by having it connected to the right parts of the system, when I go to that part, when I go to that project, when I go to that knowledge vault topic, everything else that I've ever captured related to it automatically resurfaces in that context. And you just can't do that on any other platform. So no, I'm not significantly using other tools, though I do experiment with them periodically. They're cool, they're exciting, but the ability to have such a comprehensive integrated life operating system in one place just brings so much more benefit than having even marginally better specialized tools in some areas that are not connected to the rest of the system. So that's my take. I just like this holistic view of everything happening in my life. Of course, there are pros and cons, and different people will come to different conclusions on that. All legitimate choices, but good question. So Levi asks, how would you approach rebuilding when your Notion isn't working for you? Start from scratch or build inside along with what you've been doing? Well, it kind of depends on to what degree Notion isn't working for you. So that's why I recommend starting with a system that's proven, like PPV, or there are other great systems out there. Start with an established system. The hardest thing, Notion is relatively easy to learn. It really can be picked up very quickly, the functionality of Notion. The harder thing is learning systems thinking. It's a different way of thinking than we're taught in school, than we're taught at work, where the emphasis is on components, individual components broken down, and assuming that you add them up and you get the whole. The reality is the whole is more powerful than the components individually. It's greater than the sum of the parts. So it's a new way of thinking. So if you can implement a system that applies systems thinking and proper system design, and then customize on top of it, I think you're going to be much less likely to end up with a system that doesn't work for you. Now, sometimes you drift away from it. Even I will drift away from it. And then you have to restart. So a good system is well designed to re-engage once you've drifted away from it. And Notion gives you a lot of great tools for that. And for example, say I drift away, I lose track, I have to come back to it. So we have the calendar view. The calendar view in Notion is so underrated in my view. It's so beautiful. Drag, move, reassign, reset your due dates, and you're back in action. It really is relatively quickly, but it depends on the system you design. So you want to start with a good foundation. And then, if it's not working, you tweak, you modify, you polish the rough edges, and Notion lets you do that. No other platform. You're not going to be able to do that on Asana or other platforms that have a much more strict viewpoint on how you need to work. So that's my take. Of course, I like that flexibility. So Luke asks, let me just check our time. Okay, so I think we have one more minute, so a quick one. So Beatrice asks, will the alignment zone template be available? I know other templates are, but not this one. So the alignment zone, the very simplified goals, projects, tasks template will be made available. The alignment zone is part of my course. I'm showing you a window into the bigger, more comprehensive system that we built with pillars, pipelines, and vaults, just showing the potential. It's available as part of my course, Notion Life Design. So if you want to go that path, it's also shown extensively on my YouTube channel, where the template's not available, but it shows it extensively so that you can build it yourself. The YouTube channel is the DIY approach. The course is the more supported, structured approach. Either way is up to you. So that one more quick one. How do you manage to-dos that span several days? You can either break them into smaller pieces, which is ideal if possible. Otherwise, you can just bump them a few days as you go. Keep bumping them along. So I think that's the end of our time. And looks like they're setting up. I'm going to take one more question. So Frank asks, what is a rollup? Isn't it just a one-to-one connection? How do you set up a one-to-many connection? All right, so we're getting into more elaborate database usage and functionality here. So a rollup is a one-to-one follow through. So you're establishing a relation where one entry in one database is connected to another entry in another database. And you can make it such that any other property in the first database can come with it, can roll up with it to the second database. And it's one-to-one. Now you can apply formulas to slice and dice that and do more with that. And that would be a much longer conversation. But essentially it's just a follow through with a piece of data from the original database. It looks complicated at first, and then at one moment you get it, and suddenly you have this aha moment, and then it's so obvious. And it's actually not that complicated. So if it's confusing at first, which it is for almost everybody, stick with it for a few minutes and it's going to connect, and then it's going to be a tool you can use endlessly. Let's see if we have time to do any more. Looks like I'll take another question. So Aubrey asks, what is the number one thing or top three you wish you knew at the beginning of your productivity journey? Oh, wow. What a big concept, a big question. Okay. Ultimately, it's funny in productivity. You spend all this time researching, you spend all this time digging, you're exploring endlessly. And it's the simplest things that have the most profound impact. So I just released a video today on this. The idea of first identifying what matters most to you. Second, scheduling the one thing or the one or two or three things that matter most to you. Block them on your calendar the way you would block time for anybody else. If you had a meeting with anybody else, you show up. It's on your calendar and you show up and do it. This is why I'm big on due dates. You're assigning specific dates you're going to do things, and that's DO dates. So pick the one or two or three things, not the 5 or 8 or 10 things, but the one or two things that matter most. Assign time for it, and everything else has to fit in around it. We typically let our big life ambitions slide because we're squeezing those in after the urgent seeming things, but those aren't the things that push our life forward, that make things happen in our life. So we schedule the least important things and we get them done for sure. And then the big things that will actually push our life forward and transform our lives, we just try to squeeze them in when we can. We try to find time on the weekends, maybe. Flip that around. Define the things that matter most. Schedule those first. Everything else gets scheduled around that. If you just do that and nothing else, it's going to change your life profoundly. And this kind of system we're talking about right here is a way of defining what matters most and blocking that off as your top priority, the thing you're going to get done that day. If nothing else gets done, that's the one thing you're going to get done. So we could talk endlessly about productivity tips and tricks and stuff, but it's prioritizing, it's knowing what matters most to you, it's knowing where you want to take your life, and then protecting that time. Great question. All right. Looks like we're good, and we're going to pass it off to Frances and see what Frances has in store for us. I'm eager to see what she's put together.
We are back in business. So I was explaining to you how you can talk about productivity, but I love to talk about profundivity. And essentially, this is my favorite thing that I've built in Notion, the Happiness Bar Journal, which is equal parts functional, and I like to hope equal parts beautiful just because of how colorful it is. And so I say that this is a journal, but it could really be expanded to be your life dashboard. So you could include things like your workout routines or your finances or your higher level goals and connect those databases to the journal database using the techniques that August went through. Rightio. And so I want to talk through why I actually built this journal. And so I built this because I wanted a more flexible journaling option that was less rigid. And so I'm not locked into someone else's idea of what a journal should be. And also, paper journals are really heavy. You lose them, you spill on them. And secondly, it takes advantage of Notion's great note-taking ability. So for me, Notion is great for anything that you need to track, store, and share. And journaling would fall into the examples of tracking and storing, essentially. And a big part of why I chose this to build this journal in Notion is that it showcases great ways that you can splice data and show it contextually to lead to actionable change. For example, you have this calendar section down here, which actually starts life as a database, which looks a little bit like this. And wait for that to pull up. And I clicked on the wrong view there, which actually looks like this. And you can see all of the properties here. And what's great about Notion is that the things that you build aren't static. So, for example, this is a workout workout property, which I set up, and I'm actually going to change this to a checkbox function and include it on the front page, like so, just by showing the properties. And so I'm going to select workout. Another really cool thing here is that you can actually select the properties directly on the calendar. And you might be wondering what all of these undecided tags are. Well, they're mood tags. So if I set my mood for today, I'm feeling creative, then you see that it updates directly on the calendar. And so you can imagine that after you fill this in every day or most days, you will be able to see trends over time. And if you have a negative streak, you can adjust accordingly. And another cool thing that I've done with the data in this database is that I have a bookmark property, and using linked databases, I've created a view over here which shows you bookmarked journal entries. So if I open this up, right now this is empty, but if I select the best days property in a journal, like so, it's going to show up in the view that we just created, or that I just showed you, right? So selecting best day, and just like magic, and well, not necessarily magic, but just the beautiful filtering functionality of Notion, it will automatically appear in that bookmark section. And you can use this same principle for, just give it a few seconds to load. There we go. You can use this same principle to essentially create lots of different types of contextual views. If we take a look at the filter, it says where best day is checked. You could also filter for department tags if you're using a database in a work context, so that the marketing department has all of the stuff on their page. Or if you were creating a workout database, you could filter for leg day or arm day. So filtering databases in Notion is just a really magical quality that you don't get in a lot of tools. To be able to manipulate the information to be what you need it to be. And I'm going to quickly show you how to recreate an example of a linked database. So over here, we have this today's journal section, and this is filtered for date is today. And what I'm going to do is quickly show you how to create a linked database. So the first thing we're going to do is pull up the command. And I'm going to start typing linked. And when the option comes up, Notion is going to ask me, okay, Francis, which database do you want to pull up? And in this case, it will be Francis's journal. So I'm going to create a linked database, like so. And as I said, Notion is now going to ask me which database I want to create. So I type it in and I select it. And now it's going to pull up just a raw view of the data. I've noticed here that some properties are hidden, so I'm going to unshow some properties like so. I'm going to show that new workout property that we just created, the how are you property. And now I'm going to just quickly filter this for date is today. If like so, add a filter and filter for date is today, like so. And I, just from a user experience point of view, it would probably work best if date was over there and how are you is there and workout is at the end, like so. I'm actually going to hide the best day function like I have done there. And I'm going to quickly show you how I create this purple box. So I'm going to create a call out box. Just by typing it in, and call out boxes are really great for making information stand out on the page. And I love the fact that you can drag and drop things into them. So it gets this like kind of like really nice like graphic bold effect. Like so. Ooh, it's just made me jump for a second. No worries. So that's actually some functionality in Notion. If you click onto the arrow on top of a linked database, it will take you to a larger view of the database. So if you didn't want to see the contextual view that you created for yourself, you can see the wider database very quickly. And I love all of that. I love that as a navigational piece in Notion. And so I'm going to drag and drop the database into here, and you saw August do this. And I'm going to make this purple now because it just makes me happy. But you can play around with color, and using your favorite colors in Notion is an easy way to make you actually want to use the system. And you'll see that I've still got this icon here, whereas I don't have an icon in the above one. Well, that's because this is a call out box and that's actually a text box. And so the way to get rid of the icon, if you want a bit more of a minimalistic look, is to turn that whole thing into text, like so. And I'm just going to drag and drop the title from the one above into here. It's nice and easy. And just from a design perspective, something that's underrated in Notion is adding white space to create nice padding. So I'm just going to create some white space under there, and just by hitting the enter button, and I'm going to create some white space underneath the database itself. And so now that is how I quickly recreated the callout block section. And the last thing I'm going to show you is that is how to decorate with GIFs. So GIFs are one of my favorite design features in Notion. I get a lot of my GIFs from giphy.com. So you see I've got GIFs there, and I've got GIFs there, and I've also GIFs at the top of the page with the clouds. And it's very, very easy. So what I do is I get the GIF link from giphy.com, and I've prepared some GIFs here. And I just copy and paste the link like so. And I replace the image, whether it's an icon or a header image, with the GIF link. by pasting it in. And so that's an example of how I've quickly just changed the old GIF to the new GIF. It's going to load. Oh, let's try that again. We seem to have had a little glitch with the copying and pasting. Point to point out is that on Giphy.com, you'll want to be, for things like icons, you'll want to be looking for the GIF stickers, not the GIFs with the background, so that you get this nice transparent effect. And it doesn't stop there. You could go as far to use GIFs as header images. And so I'm going to choose the same process and paste it like so. And you've got a whole different look now. I love clouds in Notion. They are such a fun aesthetic, but you should really go with any aesthetic that you feel comfortable with. And that's what I spent a lot of time doing with my clients, is that we will build things that are, yes, functional. I used to be a project manager, so I do know a lot about productivity and processes, but people don't want to use systems that look like spreadsheets. So we'll actually spend a lot of time on the design elements, bringing in branding and color and design thinking to make it look like a spreadsheet. But there is really so much you can do with Notion. I really like to say that Notion is a possibility tool, not a productivity tool. And it's really up to you to just have fun with it. Like, it doesn't have to look like a spreadsheet, even Evernote, etc. in the past. I love how customizable everything in Notion is, and that you can customize it to be something that you would like. If you have any more questions about the way I work, feel free to reach out to me at hi@thenotionbar.com or find me on Twitter. All of my details will be in the template that you get in the goodie bag. But I hope I've inspired you to make your Notion more full. I'm going to pass it over to David now. Thanks for watching.